While most NFL teams have their answer at quarterback, there are quite a few of them that still have massive question marks at the position.
New York Jets, and my biggest offseason question for them is there QB of the future in this year or next year's draft class?
The quarterback is arguably the most important position in all of football. So today, we dive into 10 teams with the biggest question marks at QB right now. Pittsburgh Steelers. After Ben Roethlisberger retired in 2022, the Steelers really haven't found their true number one quarterback to lead them on offense. Even if Aaron Rodgers returns to the Steelers for the 2026 season, it'll very likely be his final season in the league. The Steelers currently have Will Howard, who was drafted in the 6th round of the 2025 NFL Draft, and Rudolph, who, I don't think either of these guys are really Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks. Howard never suited up for the 2025 regular season as he fractured his hand during training camp, which placed him on injured reserve. Rudolph, meanwhile, played in 5 games for the Steelers in 2025 and started in Week 12 against the Chicago Bears, as Rodgers dealt with a wrist injury, but the Steelers lost that game 31-28. If Rodgers doesn't return in 2026, and if Rudolph and Howard don't work, the Steelers will have to look at drafting their next signal caller in the 2027 NFL Draft. New York Jets. The Jets had Justin Fields on the roster in 2025, but that experiment was a complete flop, as he and Tyrod Taylor split the starting reps during that season. Fields was shipped out to the Kansas City Chiefs, while Taylor is still on the roster. Taylor has some potential to be serviceable, but has mainly been a backup quarterback for, most of his career. The Jets traded a 6th round draft pick to the Las Vegas Raiders to bring Geno Smith back into the fold, which, that raises some eyebrows. I mean, Smith flopped with the silver and black, and I don't think he was exactly good when he played with the Jets originally. Smith was sacked 55 times, which was the most in the league in 2025. He threw 19 touchdowns against 17 interceptions, the most interceptions thrown in 2025, and went 2-13 as a starter. Those stats are not exactly inspiring for Gang Green heading into 2026, but hey, they could draft Ty Simpson in the upcoming draft and have him learn behind both Smith and Taylor during the 2026 season. Las Vegas Raiders. Even though the Raiders are very likely going to draft Fernando Mendoza with the first pick of the 2026 NFL Draft, they decided to sign Kirk Cousins to a 5-year, $172 million deal with $20 million guaranteed. Yeah, Cousins will be a great veteran quarterback for Mendoza to learn from, but Cousins also has a history of injuries throughout the years, and one bad injury could force Mendoza or Aiden O'Connell into the starting role. While it's not known how Mendoza will do at the professional level, O'Connell has some professional experience as a backup. But I mean, the guy has a 7-10 record as a starter. Cousins, on the other hand, gives the silver and black a more skilled veteran signal caller and has some great leadership experience on the field. So heading into 2026, Cousins could be named the Raiders starting quarterback. But who knows, maybe things will change, as either O'Connell or potentially Mendoza could be handed the keys to the offense depending on what happens after the draft. Cleveland Browns. If there's a team with a massive question mark at quarterback, it's the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson will likely be the team's starting quarterback when he returns to action after recovering from his re-ruptured Achilles injury. However, the team still has Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, who made the Pro Bowl in 2025, who could split time and command the offense in the upcoming 2026 season. Gabriel may have gone 1-5 as a starter, but he also completed 110 passes for 937 yards, threw 7 touchdowns against 2 interceptions, and rushed for 86 yards on 19 carries in 2025. Sanders, on the other hand, went 3-4 as a starter, completed 120 passes for 1,400 yards, threw 7 touchdowns against 10 interceptions, rushed for 169 yards on 21 carries, and scored a rushing touchdown. Not the best numbers, but Sanders was put into the Pro Bowl as a replacement as other high-ranked AFC quarterbacks declined the invitation. So Sanders and Gabriel have room for improvement heading into the 2026 season in case Watson is not quite ready to start for Week 1. Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons released Kirk Cousins and will be forced to continue to develop Michael Penix Jr. as their main quarterback moving forward, despite his injury history so far. The Falcons recently signed Tua Tagovailoa to a 1-year contract with the team and have also signed backup Trevor Siemian to the roster. However, similar to Penix Jr., Tagovailoa has had his own injury problems. Now, we would love to see Penix Jr. and Tagovailoa stay healthy for 2026, but just saying, if they're both injured and forced to miss time, Siemian would be forced to step up, and his statistics do not scream Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals released Kyler Murray to escape his high-salaried contract and to rebuild under new head coach Mike LaFleur moving forward. However, the current quarterbacks on the roster are Jacoby Brissett, Gardner Minshew, and Keaton Slovis, who aren't exactly Pro Bowl caliber talent. offense. Sure, Brissett and Minshew saw some success when they started games, but the Cardinals' offense was pretty dang awful in 2025 outside of Trey McBride. The offensive line was bad as they allowed 59 sacks in 2025, and while the Cardinals added Isaac Seumalo, Olai Uda, and Elijah Wilkinson to bolster the offensive line for 2026, it is by no means a guarantee that they're going to improve. Having a strong offensive line is a must for any quarterback, and we could be seeing both Brissett and Minshew split reps depending on how each of them performs, or if one guy is injured for the next man to step up. The Cardinals could also draft Ty Simpson, as he could replace Murray's production and learn from both Brissett and Minshew before getting a chance to start. Not to mention, he'd be a great fit in Mike LaFleur's system, giving him pre- and post-snap movements and more defined reads that could get the offense moving in 2026. If the Cardinals don't draft Simpson and end up tanking for 2026, well, they could maybe try to draft Arch Manning or Dante Moore in 2027. Miami Dolphins. After the Dolphins released Tua Tagovailoa, they signed former Green Bay Packers quarterback Malik Willis to a 3-year, $67.5 million deal to be their next quarterback. However, outside of Devon Achane, the Dolphins' offense really has no other talented weapons for Willis to work with. The Dolphins also have Cam Miller and Quinn Ewers on the roster as well, and Ewers did see some action in 2025. He played in 4 games and started 3 of them, but the starting job will likely go to Willis, as he's the more proven and experienced starting quarterback. However, if anything happens to Willis before the start of 2026, then Ewers and Miller must be ready to take command. New Orleans Saints. The Saints were an offensive mess in 2025 as they went through Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck, with Shuck emerging as the guy who will likely be the team's Week 1 starter for 2026. Shuck showed some significant promise as the Saints starter, completing 221 passes for 2,384 yards, throwing 10 touchdowns against 6 interceptions, and rushing for 186 yards on 45 carries. Oh, and he scored 3 rushing touchdowns in 2025. Not too bad for a rookie. Rattler went 1-7 as a starter, so that's definitely got to improve in 2026. The Saints also recently signed Zach Wilson to a 1-year deal, who was recently on the Miami Dolphins for 2025. Although Wilson isn't as talented as Shuck or Rattler, he still has potential. Unfortunately, none of these guys are really a proven commodity, so we're just gonna have to wait and see how 2026 plays out. Indianapolis Colts. Yes, the Colts re-signed Daniel Jones to a 2-year, $88 million extension for the 2026 season, but it should be pointed out that his 2025 season was cut short due to an Achilles injury. When Jones was healthy, he completed 261 passes for 3,101 yards, throwing 19 touchdowns against 8 interceptions, and rushed for 164 yards on 45 carries. Plus, he scored 5 rushing touchdowns in 2025. But if Jones isn't ready to begin the 2025 season, then Anthony Richardson, Riley Leonard, and Seth Hennigan will have to be ready to step up. And you know, Richardson's production was not exactly great in 2023 or 2024, and he only appeared in 2 games in 2025, completing 1 pass for 9 yards. So, if something happens to Jones, his current backups are not looking too hot. Richardson is really going to have to improve on his production, otherwise they are going to have a tough 2026 season. Minnesota Vikings. J.J. McCarthy finally made his debut in the 2025 season, but he struggled at times, as the Vikings finished the year with a 9-8 record and ultimately missed out on the playoffs. McCarthy started in 10 games, completing 140 passes for 1,632 yards, throwing 11 touchdowns against 12 interceptions, rushing for 181 yards on 37 carries, and scoring 4 rushing touchdowns. The Vikings recently signed Kyler Murray to a 1-year contract for the veterans minimum, opening the door for some serious quarterback competition in the land of 10,000 lakes. Murray has playoff experience in comparison to McCarthy, who still has much to improve on for 2026. But Murray could certainly serve as a great mentor for McCarthy to improve his game. So if Murray wins the starting job, he can potentially resurrect his career with the Vikings, as it is well known that head coach Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback guru, a guy who got the best out of Kirk Cousins and revived Sam Darnold's career. The Vikings also have Carson Wentz on the roster, even though he's kind of a shell of his former self. And they also have Max Brosmer, who started 4 games and threw 4 interceptions and no touchdowns. So there is reason for optimism on the Vikings, but they certainly have more questions at quarterback than answers. But we definitely are looking forward to seeing who the Vikings will roll with once the 2026 season kicks off. But hey, what team team do you think currently has the biggest question mark at QB? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, then hey, clicking the like button helps us out a ton. And you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, then subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.